By 1455, the Ottomans had captured southern Serbia, solidifying their control over the region and paving the way for further expansion. In July 1456, Sultan Mehmed II launched a massive campaign against the Hungarian stronghold of Belgrade in Serbia, aiming to capture this strategic fortress. However, his efforts were thwarted by the legendary commander John Hunyadi, who delivered a decisive defeat to the Ottoman forces, halting their advance into Central Europe. Later that year, Ibrahim II of the Karamanid dynasty attempted to forge a grand anti-Ottoman alliance. This coalition was to include his own realm, Skanderbeg, Hunyadi, Pope Calixtus III, and Alfonso V of Aragon, working together to challenge Mehmed's dominance. Unfortunately, these plans never materialized due to various obstacles. Shortly after the victory, in August 11th, Hunyadi succumbed to the plague, leaving a void in the fight against Ottoman expansion. Earlier that same year, the fortress of Cree was alive with celebration. Amid the chaos of resistance against the Ottoman tide, a beacon of hope was born, Hamza Kastrioti II, the son of Albania's lion, Skanderbeg. The birth of the boy was hailed as a divine sign, a promise that the bloodline of resistance would endure. The courtiers toasted, the soldiers cheered, and even the rugged mountains seemed to stand taller that day. But not everyone celebrated. Hamza Kastrioti, Skanderbeg's nephew, sat brooding in the shadows, watching the festivities with smoldering eyes. Once a trusted commander and contender for Skanderbeg's legacy, Hamza saw his dreams crumble with the infant's cry. A baby, he thought bitterly, has stolen my birthright. The envy within him festered into something darker. By 1457, Hamza had made his move. Like a character plucked straight out of a tale from Westeros, he switched allegiances, riding into the Ottoman court with a pledge to deliver his uncle's head. Sultan Mehmed II, ever the opportunist, granted Hamza command of an Ottoman army. With insider knowledge of Skanderbeg's strategies, Hamza confidently marched on Albania, imagining himself as the new lord of the land. But Skanderbeg was no easy prey. When news of the betrayal reached him, the seasoned warrior did not falter. Instead, he rallied his forces, blending strategy with righteous fury, preparing for the Battle of Albulena unfolded as one of Skanderbeg's most brilliant military triumphs, showcasing his unmatched tactical genius. The Ottomans, led by Hamza and Ishak Bey Evernaz, invaded Albania with a massive force of 80,000 soldiers. The Ottoman army did not invade Albania as a single unit. The initial detachments, composed of Akinci cavalrymen, advanced through Dibur, where Skanderbeg managed to delay their progress. However, once the main Ottoman force arrived, the Albanians were unable to continue resisting and retreated. Recognizing that both Ottoman commanders, Ishak Bey and Hamza Kastrioti, were familiar with Albania's terrain and his own strategies, Skanderbeg decided to implement a new approach. While his usual tactic was to lure the enemy into a trap and ambush them, this time he altered the method. He divided his forces into multiple smaller groups and instructed their commanders to take different routes through forests and mountains, ensuring they remained untraceable and would not engage the Ottomans unless explicitly ordered. Supplies for the Albanian fighters were provided by local inhabitants and strategically placed depots throughout the mountains. As the Ottomans advanced through Mad, they plundered the region. Skanderbeg, meanwhile, took parallel routes through the rugged terrain. Avoiding direct confrontation, Ishak Bey refrained from besieging Crui, Albania's primary fortress, until he could confirm Skanderbeg's status. Instead, in the late May 1457, he set up camp north of Mount Timanishta to await Skanderbeg's emergence. This area, known as Albulena, was located south of present-day Lats. Surrounded by hills that served as protective barriers, guards were stationed across the perimeter. Since Mount Timanishta had previously been Skanderbeg's base during his operations against the Ottoman camp during the siege of Crui in 1450, Ishak Bey and Hamza fortified their positions, aiming to crush any Albanian resistance they encountered. However, their efforts proved fruitless as no Albanian forces confronted them. Uncertain of Skanderbeg's whereabouts, the Ottoman leaders reinforced the northern defenses of their camp, leaving the eastern flank near Tumanishta relatively unguarded. Ottoman scouts crossed the Mat River into northern Albania, reaching Venetian-held Leja and even venturing into other Venetian territories. Skanderbeg's prolonged absence fueled speculation that he had fled, unable to confront the Ottomans, and that his forces had turned against him. This notion was reinforced by Venetians in Duris. Despite the rumors, Isaac Bey and Hamza remained cautious, continuing reconnaissance missions that reached as far north as Skuturi. Skanderbeg stayed hidden in the mountains throughout July and August. Though the specifics of his army's actions during this time remain unknown, his strategy aimed to exhaust the Ottoman forces, making them wait and believe they had already achieved a decisive victory. Meanwhile, Skanderbeg sent George Petrie to Rome as an envoy to convince the Pope that Albania had been conquered and that additional support was required to drive the Ottomans out. On September 17, 1457, Pope Calixtus III informed Skanderbeg that Johann Navarre had been dispatched to help fund the crusade. However, by the time Navarre arrived, the situation had drastically shifted. The local people remained loyal to Skanderbeg, keeping his location a secret. Believing they had successfully defeated him, Isaac Bey and Hamza grew increasingly confident and began to spread out, relaxed, and drop their guard. When Skanderbeg deemed the moment right, he signaled his scattered forces to regroup discreetly, ensuring they remained unnoticed by the Ottomans. They assembled near the hills of Tumanishta, strategically positioned where the Ottoman camp was most vulnerable. On September 2nd, 1457, he divided his troops into 3 separate units to launch the assault. Accompanied by his most trusted men, Skanderbeg climbed to a high vantage point to survey the enemy encampment and observed that the Ottomans were at rest. He then led his chosen warriors down to eliminate any sentries, but one guard spotted him and ran into the camp, shouting his arrival. To preserve the element of surprise, Skanderbeg quickly ordered his forces to attack. Accompanied by the deafening clatter of metal tools and weapons struck together, the Albanians stormed the Turkish camp from multiple directions. The Ottomans, taken by surprise, were overwhelmed by the ferocity of the assault. Despite their superior numbers, they panicked, believing the Albanian forces were far larger than they actually were. Hamza struggled to rally his troops, insisting their opponents were few, while Isaac Bey attempted to send reinforcements to support him. However, the sudden arrival of new Albanian contingents forced Isaac Bey to shift focus. A relentless series of cavalry charges and countercharges, combined with a barrage of missiles and arquebus fire, drove the Ottomans deeper into the camp. As they realized they were surrounded, their forces descended into chaos and began to disperse. In the aftermath, Hamza was captured, though Isaac Bey managed to flee. Ottoman casualties were estimated to be as high as 30,000. Killing 15,000, an additional 15,000 men were taken prisoner. The fallen Albanian soldiers were laid to rest in the Cathedral of St. Mary in the village of Shemri, located just east of Mamarasi near the battlefield. The Battle of Albulena played a crucial role in the southern resistance against the Ottoman Empire. Ottoman historian Franz Babinger regarded it as Skanderbeg's most brilliant victory. The triumph bolstered the morale of Skanderbeg's troops, who, unlike Hamza, remained loyal and rarely deserted. Following his capture, Hamza was sent as a prisoner to Naples, within Alfonso's realm. In response, the Ottomans dispatched an envoy to negotiate the ransom for the standard bearers and 40 distinguished prisoners. The envoy also sought to broker a truce between Mehmed and Skanderbeg, but the latter insisted that he would only agree if Svetigorod and Berat, lost in 1448 and 1450, respectively, were restored to his domain. When Mehmed refused these terms, Skanderbeg reinforced his garrisons in the vicinity of Svetigorod. Despite the Ottomans' refusal, the victory granted Albania and Italy valuable time, leading to a 3-year armistice between Mehmed and Skanderbeg in 1460. This pause allowed Skanderbeg to travel to Italy and support Ferdinand I of Naples, who had recently ascended the throne following Alfonso's death. The battle marked a turning point in the Ottoman-Albanian War, showcasing the peak of Albanian resistance while triggering some of the most intense Ottoman incursions into Albania. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of legendary leaders.